showing off some of her blubber by that rock island. This is such an important source of vitamins and nutrients for Inuit because some of the most northern and remote Arctic communities only receive a fresh shipment of food just a couple of times a year. And even though we're not in the Arctic right now, we are still affecting it every day. And you and I affect the Arctic when we use energy. Every time we use energy, we emit different types of carbon gases into our atmosphere, and they get stuck there. And those carbon gases are very good at trapping heat, and because of this, we are seeing temperatures rise around the world. But what's happening specifically in the Arctic is that the ice is melting much faster in the summer, and it's freezing slower in the winter. You might be wondering what this has to do with beluga whales. Well, it has to do with food in the Arctic. This is because there's this special type of algae called sea ice algae that forms the foundation of the Arctic food web, and like its name suggests, it actually lives on the bottom surface of that sea ice. And that algae is eaten by different types of invertebrates. Fish eat those invertebrates, and of course, if you're a beluga whale, like Aurora whale, you're certainly going to be eating a lot of those fish. But with less and less sea ice forming in the Arctic every year, we're seeing less sea ice algae, which obviously can have effects on animals like beluga whales. But one of the leading causes of that global climate change is energy use, and large cities use a lot more energy than small Arctic communities. Surprisingly, though, we can find a small population of beluga whales living quite close to Canada's two largest cities. So pop quiz, everyone here is on the spot, shout it out if you know the answer. What are Canada's two largest cities? Toronto, absolutely. The other one's French speaking, it starts with an M. Montreal, certainly. Those are Canada's two largest cities, and they're situated right on the Great Lakes, the largest freshwater system in the world. Water from the Great Lakes does run into the St. Lawrence River, which itself flows out into the Atlantic Ocean. Now take a moment to think, and if you've ever visited the St. Lawrence, you're actually very lucky, because during the time you were there, you would have been neighbors with about 1,000 beluga whales who call those waters home. We know that most people who live in that area don't rely on belugas for vitamins and nutrients like Inuit. There are, however, people who live in that area who rely on them economically. This is because there are a small number of whale watching operations that run through the St. Lawrence. We catch a glimpse, like at the front of the glass here, of these amazing white whales. What we just saw from Aurora there was a very high energy behavior, and if you're exceptionally lucky and you're on a boat in the St. Lawrence, that is maybe something that you would see. But likely what you would be catching glimpses of on those waters are actually the backs of beluga whales, just like Aurora is showing off for us now. What you can see running along the back of a beluga whale is called a dorsal ridge, and this is a very important part of a beluga whale's body for scientists to study. As you can see, those dorsal ridges get different nicks and notches on them, and just as our fingerprints are unique to each one of us, the dorsal ridges of beluga whales are unique to each individual as well. So when we study them, it's one of the neat ways that we can learn how to identify individuals within a population. Belugas in that St. Lawrence population do face different challenges than belugas in the Arctic do. Can anyone here think of a specific challenge a beluga might face living next to two very large cities? Think about pollution, or think about something really noisy that runs along the water? Or think about both, you got it. Belugas do face problems from pollution because runoff from the Great Lakes does enter the water where those belugas call home. And this runoff contains a very high concentration of chemicals and toxins. And these chemicals and toxins are able to make their way into the food web in the St. Lawrence, and where they end up concentrating, well, that's actually in the blubber of beluga whales. Now keep your eyes peeled right at the front of the glass. We'll get to see some Aurora's blubber here. And it's after that blubber, unfortunately, was full of toxins. The reason I say that is because some belugas can become so contaminated that when their bodies wash up on shore, they actually have to be treated as toxic waste. I also mentioned that belugas face problems from boats as well, and what they specifically have issues with is actually the noise that boat traffic creates. And I'll elaborate more on that in a moment, but I'll give you a bit of a background first. Naturally, rivers and estuaries are areas where rivers meet the ocean, just like in the St. Lawrence, are excellent birthing and nursing grounds for beluga whales. We do tend to see them hanging out in those areas often. Those places can be very shallow, but not only are they shallow, they're very dark, very murky as well. And for this reason, belugas rely very heavily on different types of vocalizations to get each other's attention. Now, belugas are in fact so vocal that they even get the nickname canaries of the sea. And not only do they rely on those vocalizations to communicate, they also rely on them to navigate throughout their environment through an animal form of sonar called echolocation. But we do think that it's very heavy boat traffic in the St. Lawrence, as well as increasingly in the Arctic, that's having an increasingly negative effect on belugas' ability to echolocate and communicate. This is an area that we actively study here at the Vancouver Aquarium. And this meaningful research would not be possible without the very strong bond of trust that our trainers have developed with our beluga whales. So to tell us a little bit more about what it's like to work with these amazing animals every single day, I'm going to pass the microphone on to our trainer, Phil.
Thanks, Tess. I'll give it a word so you can see where my work is coming from. Working as a marine mammal trainer can definitely be very fun and quite rewarding, as you might imagine. You get to feel those strong relationships with these beautiful marine mammals. So definitely something really spectacular. But because we're so close in with our beluga whales, one of the main responsibilities for our veterinarians is to keep all the animals nice and healthy. By using that trusting bond that we built up with Laura, Kava, and Keela here, we can actually pull all sorts of behaviors. Some of those behaviors you see throughout the show. These behaviors, most importantly, are ones that we call animal husbandry behaviors. Those are basically any voluntary medical behaviors that help us monitor our animal's health. So, for example, what about cat? And we can do this called a dosal cadet. And from this layout, I can inspect your entire body from head to tail and look for any new scratches, nicks, cuts, bumps, bruises she might have to make sure her ultimate health is looking as good as it should be. And as I talked about earlier, research and conservation are some of the main things we focus here at the aquarium. So again, with our relationship with our whales, we can participate in those amazing research projects. So we can learn more about these animals and better protect the beluga whales that live up in the Arctic as well as in the St. Lawrence River. Back to you, Tess.
Thanks so much, Phil. And he's absolutely right. We do get to share a unique opportunity to connect our beluga whales here at the aquarium. Has anyone here actually seen a beluga in the open water before? A couple hands going up. I think maybe I see 3. Which is actually really, really amazing that you had the opportunity to do that. And the reason that I asked that question is that most of us don't really get the chance to see this because we don't think about places where belugas live as hot destination spots when we are planning our summer vacations. I myself shared that mentality, but as a young biologist helping with research, where did I find myself one summer? But up north. I do feel so privileged to be able to explore that absolutely breathtaking space. And I saw so many cool things while I was there. One of my most vivid memories of how interesting it was for me to adapt my lifestyle to those incredibly cold conditions. But when I see our beluga whales here at the aquarium, it really does remind me of how special they are to thrive in that same environment. Unfortunately, though, it may not be that Arctic home that's changing faster than belugas can actually adapt to it. With less and less sea ice forming in the Arctic every year, we are seeing everything that lives there affected, including beluga whales. But I also mentioned that we are connected to these animals as well through our use of energy, which means there are small changes that we can make in our everyday lives to help reduce our impact on the Arctic. Anything from using the cold setting on your washing machine to unplugging your cell phone charger when you're not using it can save energy. Well, let's think bigger. Let's think beluga size altogether. Organize a compost drive at your school or carpool